This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not provided as financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or an offer to buy or sell any securities or make any investment. The views expressed by guest speakers are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement thereof by SNN or its affiliates. SNN expressly disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information presented in this podcast. My guest on the show today is Phil Richards, CFO of Corero Network Security PLC. It's a publicly traded company. The symbol is CNS on the AIM. Corero Network Security is a leading provider of distributed denial of service, DDoS, protection solutions, specializing in automatic detection and protection solutions that includes network visibility, analytics, and reporting tools. Corero's technology provides scalable protection capabilities against both external DDoS attackers and internal DDoS threats in even the most complex edge and subscriber environments, ensuring internet service availability and uptime. According to Corero's annual DDoS Threat Intelligence Report that they recently published, there's been a 300% increase in carpet bomb attacks in 2022 compared to 2021, over 7 times as many Mirai-like DDoS attacks in 2022 than in 2021, and twice as many DDoS attacks targeting DNS, domain name system services, in 2022 than in 2020. Needless to say, the need for cybersecurity solutions is on the rise, and I wanted to better understand how Corero is addressing these industry tailwinds, as well as how Corero's DDoS protection solutions are unique and different compared to their peers, the nature of their partnerships with firms like Juniper Networks, which owns 9.9% of Corero. From a corporate perspective, being a publicly traded MicroCap on the AIM exchange, recent financial performance and executive management shakeup, and Corero's 3 to 5 year vision for the company and the inflection points that will get them there. With that, please enjoy my conversation with Phil Richards, CFO of Corero Network Security. Phil, thank you for joining me today. How are you doing?
Thanks, Robert. I'm very well. Thank you. Very well. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Listen, I'm excited. You're our first AIM listed company that we've had here on the due diligence series. So I'm excited to get a better understanding of the company itself, of course, and then also, just being public on the AIM, what that experience is like. But, my first question for everyone on here, so, not to just fire one right at you, but we're going to do it. How would you describe Corero in one sentence? What's that best description?
The DDoS protection specialists.
All right, there we go. Well, I want to also get some history too. So, let's take a look back at Corero's history. Sure. When was the company founded and what was the original thesis for its founding?
So it's like not a simple question as you might have thought, because the company's been through a few iterations, right?
By the way, from the shortest question to obviously the longest question that's out there.
So, because the company originally was called Top Layer, and it actually was educational software, and then that piece of the business was spun off, and then it focused on the cybersecurity DDoS specialism, and therefore changed it. And not therefore, but then we changed our name to Corero, and we're listed on the AIM Stock Exchange. So it's been around for quite a while, 10+ years. So it's a bit of an anomaly because it's got a real startup feel to it, but it actually is quite a mature company in the terms of how long it's been on the stock exchange, how long it's been around, and therefore a lot of the people in the organization are actually, we have a lot of reasonably long tenured people, 5-10 years plus people. There's a significant amount of the company has been there through these iterations as well. So it's quite this kind of, sort of in the middle between nice tech startup feel, but also mature listed company, been there, seen there, done that. So it's a little bit of both.
Very good. Hey, real quick, for those that don't know what DDoS means, DDoS, the acronym and everything, can you just quickly explain what that means and how Corero is now in this space?
Of course. So it stands for distributed denial of service, and effectively what that means is when someone initiates a DDoS attack, it's effectively pushing a lot of data at your server, your website, whatever it is at the same time. So basically spamming it with, trillions of gigs of requests, that floods the server, floods, your network, and takes everything down effectively. So it means that you cannot function as an organization. And these attacks may be, seconds, minutes, whatever it may be. And it's just dumping so much data down that, the system's overwhelmed. And that is obviously a huge inconvenience in itself. But the secondary inconvenience, which can be even more serious, is actually that this takes down the defenses of companies. It means that other malware can get in underneath, as it were, slip in through under the radar. So you've got this huge amount of noise, which in itself is pretty horrendous. And if you are I used to work in sports betting, for example. So being down for even a few seconds during Super Bowl or whatever it might be is pretty disastrous for sports betting companies. So that act in itself can be very bad if you rely on latency as your absolute USP, or minimizing latency. But this idea that the defenses are down and therefore stuff can come in underneath is something which maybe is not quite as well understood. But that is effectively what DDoS is. It's a very basic attack that can do a hell of a lot of damage, and it's pretty simple. It's not difficult to find people that will do a DDoS attack for you. It's not an expensive way of bringing someone down. So it's scary in that respect, that it's quite easy to do, but it can cause a hell of a lot of damage and signify an even bigger problem than that.
Very good. All right, so Corero is in the business of providing these DDoS protection solutions. Can you describe exactly what they are and how are they unique and different, maybe compared to some of your peers out there?
Yeah, absolutely. So effectively what we try to do is filter out what is malicious from non-malicious traffic, in terms of basically make sure that your network doesn't go down. So we analyze, patterns, data volumes, etc., and then see, okay, well, hold on, there's a spike here. This actually may be a signal that something is about to happen, or that you are under attack. And we use, our deep learning of an understanding of when this is likely to be, to then work out whether you need to mitigate, whether it's legitimate traffic, etc. So, because the key is to make sure you don't want to pull everything out. You don't want to shut people down, because that's pretty bad in itself. It's called black holing, and effectively that means that people can't do anything. So you want to make sure that enough traffic is allowed, is taken out, that you're not overwhelming the network, but you're still letting some things through. And so where we like to think that we have a real USP is that traditionally DDoS protection was done in the form of scrubbing, and scrubbing effectively means it takes everything out, cleans it, puts it back in again, right? But that has a time lag, that has a delay, and it's not very scalable. If you are an ISP that's dealing with an unbelievable amount of data, and data obviously is ever increasing every year, scrubbing is not a solution for you. So we do scrubbing, but it's not really our preferred, because it's not very efficient. So we have these different types of mitigation. So we have what's called inline, which is effectively the most efficient, which is it effectively is our solution sitting in line with your systems, and in real time filtering out just what we think is the malicious traffic, so that there's no disruptions, no latency. We're not pulling anything out of the system. We're just monitoring the data in real time. And then we have an edge defense, which is just picking at the edges, picking out enough that it's not getting anything down. And that's really when you're a very big organization and it's just not possible to look at everything. So you're saying, okay, hold on, I'm going to pick out enough that we know that it's not going to take your network down. So it's a solution, and we try to design these solutions for what fits the customer, how much data they have, how many points of contact, etc., etc. And that's where we can be a lot more flexible. We are on-prem solution primarily, which is also very different. So many of our competitors are in the cloud only, which is fine if everyone's in the cloud, but a lot of people actually we're finding are going back to on-prem. And whether it's you want control over your own security or whatever it may be, whether the cloud's providing very expensive, etc. We then are on-prem, so you can put our solution in your server, in your hosting center, wherever it may be. So that's another where we feel that we have an edge.
Very good. So I want to talk about market penetration, how you're reaching your target customer base. Another multi-part question. Here you go. Who is that target customer that you're looking to reach and work with, and how are you getting to them?
So we had a real sort of refocus, as it were, of our sales organization, our go-to-market pitch over the last year. And what we are targeting are these tier 2, tier 3 internet service providers. So the regional broadband providers, people like that, we're not targeting your big players, your AT&Ts and stuff like that. We're targeting those that are slightly smaller than that, still need to provide protection to their customers. And we're also targeting data hosting centers, people like that, that again, where you can add us as a top layer, and you can also, it can be a real win-win, because you can then on charge our service to your end customer. You say, hey, listen, if you come with us, we'll also provide DDoS protection to you. The little extra cost on top of that, but that's, for them, that's scalable. If they have 1,000 customers charging each, whatever it is a month, then that means that basically, great ROI on what they're paying us, for example. So those are really the types of people we're targeting SaaS enterprises as well. But going into that, and geographically, predominantly our footprint is US based. We're 70% around about there in the US at the moment of our revenues, and the rest is UK, some in Europe, tiny little bit of APAC, but the focus really is US, Europe as the sort of second market for us.
Very good. And I figured now is probably a good time to talk about, one of the big, I guess, source of revenue, from my understanding, is some of these global partnerships that you've put together, or with Corero. Correro's put together. I say you, it's the royal you, right? Big Lebowski.
Well, I'll take all the credit. I mean, I have nothing to do with it, but I'll take it. I'll take it anyway.
Fair enough. So, speaking of these partnerships, you got Juniper Networks, I think also GTT as well. So can you explain the nature of these relationships? And I think I saw somewhere that Juniper owns about 9.9% of the company, if that's correct. Okay.
Great bit of homework there, Robert. Absolutely. So they do, and that's quite nice for us, because that means there's a real mutual benefit to the relationship, whatever happens with that investment in us. And that for us, these partnerships are about two things. One of them is reaching a customer base that we can't normally reach. Juniper's a lot bigger. They can have a lot bigger customers and further reach to us, whether it's in geographical markets that we can't target, or specific customers that just won't look at someone who's as small as us and want a complete solution. They don't want to be bitty and go, a little bit of DDoS from this person and a little bit of this from that. They want the whole thing. And then we tack onto the end of a Juniper product and they say, hey, listen, you've got the whole lot, including DDoS. And but the second is also the tech validation, which is extremely important to us. If you have someone like Juniper saying, these are our DDoS suppliers, it's like, hey, listen, actually, we've looked out in the market and they're the best at what they do, and that's why we're partnering with them. And that for us is extremely important as well, because, as I said, we're only small, and by having names like Juniper that we partner with, we can demonstrate that actually the tech is fantastic, because otherwise they wouldn't be using our solution. So same with GTT, and it just helps us. It just helps us reach places that we can't reach. It gives us those extra arms and legs in places that we don't have boots on the ground. So it's a really great, mutually beneficial, because we give them a product they don't have themselves, and they don't have to develop themselves. So it's a win-win for everyone.
Very cool. And I mean, from what you can tell us, I would assume that these types of partnerships the company is looking to continue to develop and find other folks to find those, channel partners, so that you can sell into that kind of thing.
Oh, absolutely. It's a real focus of us to find as many partners as we can. It's, it only helps us, both from a customer reach and tech validation standpoint, and they've been a real success for us. And we put a lot of effort into the current partnerships and into looking for wherever we can for new ones.
Very good. All right. So my next topic I want to get to is talking about some of the DDoS. Is DDoS? How should I DDoS? Oh, you say DDoS.
Whatever you want. Right. I'm good with all of them.
All right. So, looking at some industry tailwinds for DDoS, the company actually, I think you guys just put out this DDoS Threat Intelligence Report, where some of the findings saw 300%, this according to your report, 300% increase in carpet bomb attacks in 2022 compared to 2021. Over 7 times as many Mirai-like DDoS attacks in 2022 than in 2021. Twice as many DDoS attacks targeting domain name system DNS services in 2022 than in 2020. So, these are some pretty stark numbers, to say the least. So can you explain a little bit more about the report, how this affects, the company's demand for your products and goods, as well as just the industry, and maybe, I guess, be that expert on DDoS and what the heck's going on out there? It just seems like there's an attack every second right now.
Yeah, there is. And I think the main thing to take from the report is it's not going away. That's the thing. It's not a new form of cybercrime. It's one of the oldest forms out there. It's been around for a long, long time. 10 plus years, but it's not going away. People are. It's still, as I said, it's very simple. It's a very simple way of doing a lot of damage. The carpet bomb is a slightly newer version of it that we're seeing, where people aren't targeting specific. They're just targeting an area, scattering it across and seeing basically where it hits in a particular area, whether it's a geographical area or whatever that area may look like. As I said, so it's really not going away. They are, we're seeing an ever increasing trend, but you've got to also think that every year, the amount of data people use goes up. The amount of companies out there requiring connectivity, low latency, etc., goes up. So it's inevitable that the disruption is year on year is gonna be worse and worse. And the more globally connected people are as well, it then will impact different countries in different ways. It's obviously at its most mature in places like the US, where the internet is the be all and end all, but it's certainly taken off in other places as well, and right across the globe. So unfortunately, it's not going anywhere. And obviously, that gives us a significant market to address. It does keep on growing and growing.
Very good. All right, so Phil, I built you up to this point to ask a couple tough questions, right? I mean, I think anybody that's followed Corero and has seen the news, the CEO resigned back in February. The position hasn't been filled yet. You're doing a great job auditioning for the role, by the way, just between us. But that bit of news, and it's, look, the company's still profitable. Yeah, revenues were down from 2021 to 2022, but the company's still, positive, EBITDA positive. So what's going on? Give us kind of the corporate update. What's happening here? What's the plan going forward? What's happening?
No, it's absolutely fair. And listen, I'll be the first to hold my hands up and say 2022 was disappointing. There's no two ways about it. The market expected us to grow, and we didn't from revenue. We had some really good underlying growth in there with our annual recurring revenues, which is what the market really looks at in terms of long-term valuation, or maybe should look at. But at the end of the day, EBITDA are profitable, but not as profitable as 2021. So there were certainly some things where you'd say, look, you didn't really deliver on what the market thought you were going to do. Now, tough comparative with 2021 is what I'd first say. But secondly, we were quite clear that what we really are doing is refocusing, as I was saying before, about this ideal customer profile, refocusing the sales team, really understanding who we're targeting, not going after big white elephants, and that seems to be paying dividends, because we brought out our trading update last week. For the half year, we were 10.6 million revenue, 20% up year on year, bookings up 19% year on year. ARR, this annual recurring revenue, up 13% year on year. So we had, the first half, we cautiously optimistic. It's looking like, okay, we get that 2022 we didn't deliver what we said we'd do, and so look, we're going to try and reset expectations a bit. And I know you wanted to talk in a bit about what it's like being on the AIM market, but that's one of the realities, is that, listen, you got to deliver on what the market thinks you're going to do, and you've got to steer the market in the right way, which we kind of didn't quite manage to do in 22. So this year, the analysts have got us as a much more conservative growth rate, but that's good for us. We want to make sure we're at a rate that is sustainable, that we can deliver on, and H1 did so accordingly. So I was really pleased to come out with that. As an aside, probably the first bit of good news I've managed to put out since I joined in November, having had to go through the year end. So that was nice. But it's nice that we're really demonstrating that it's working, just quietly delivering, which is what we need to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, look, it's tough, because I in my research, I didn't know if the company put out any guidance on what you expected to do for 2022 or anything like that. But if you did, and it was supposed to be more than 2021, yeah, that's rough, right? Because investors expect this, you get that, all right. Now you kind of got to go back to the drawing board and build that trust back up. But if everything that you're saying to me is on point, then all right. It seems like you guys are kind of starting to get the ball rolling again. But also wanted to ask on the key management team. I'm not going to ask the reasons for the why CEO left. There's always so many different reasons, and but even if I asked, you'd probably give me some kind of stock answer anyway. So I'm not even going to go there. But what's the goal? What's the in terms of the management team construction? What's the plan moving forward there? Are you guys looking to fill that role?
Yeah. So look, long term we are. We've obviously sort of put out a few messages about the fact that directors are looking into it. It's not something that's going to be done super quick. It's not something where, because we think that, look, we're in a good spot. We're delivering. We've got a really tight strategy. We know what we're doing. It's not essential for us at the moment. Jens Montanano, who's our sort of key shareholder, has stepped in, and he's also our chairman of our board, but he stepped in as exec chairman and is able to dedicate quite a lot of time. So we have that, sort of CEO type presence there of someone who's extremely experienced in the market and knows Corero inside out. We've got Andrew Miller, who was, my predecessor 2 CFOs ago, who's come in as deputy COO for the interim period. So we've got some really, really solid, wise heads in there, along with a really good management team. So there's not really a feeling that we need to disrupt it, knee-jerk reaction, get in a new CEO. We want to plan for the long term. What do we actually want? And then, make sure we're getting the right person for the role.
Absolutely. So another question I have, as you said, I wanted to kind of quickly cover the fact that, I said at the top, you're the first AIM listed company that we've had on the podcast here. My audience is primarily North American, both US and Canada, so when they're assessing Corero or even any AIM listed company for a potential investment, doing the deeper dive due diligence, what would you say are some of the things that folks should really better understand about the MicroCap ecosystem for companies that are listed on the AIM or LSE?
Yeah, I mean, investing from the US into AIM is quite difficult, I think, it full stop. I think it's actually quite tough to be able to buy securities because it's not a market that many brokers want to dip into from the US. It's quite small. The stock it can be quite illiquid. It's a difficult market to be on, really, at the moment. There's not a lot of interest and excitement out there investing in AIM at the moment. I'm going to be brutally honest about it, and it's not, it's common knowledge, and this is just a factor of the macroeconomic conditions at the moment aren't particularly great. Yeah. Our market cap is it's small and it's under investment quality for a lot of people in terms of market size, and particularly in the US, your market investment multiples in the US are a lot higher than in the UK. So where someone in the US wouldn't, many people wouldn't invest in anything that's under 100 million, 200, half a billion market cap. We're clearly not that. But to understand the AIM market is really, what is the purpose of AIM? It's really to give companies a public profile that are not that big, but have a good product, have really good growth potential. And there are certain investors that do like looking at AIM and do like a little bit more of a speculative investment. But you've got to you've got to kind of know what you're doing, because there's a lot of stuff on AIM which is, as you'd expect, not of the highest quality, and unfortunately sometimes you get tarred with that brush. That we have very rigid regulatory and reporting requirements. We report everything, and the corporate governance is extremely strict on that as well. But still, there are some AIM companies that don't perform as they should do, and then we all get tarnished with that brush, unfortunately. So
Yeah, I asked this because they said this in I think I saw this investor, I can't remember, so I apologize if I'm not giving the proper credit, but they were like, yeah, no, when you look at the AIM listed companies, in North America, the US, like, we're always the last to know if something happens. The stock, like, we'll wake up, the next thing we know, the stock's down 20%, and it's like, what happened? And it's nice. If I could recommend anything for folks listening to this and they're looking at the AIM, try and develop some relationships with folks, boots on the ground. It's good to kind of have that network up there to better understand, what's going on a day-to-day basis. Even if the company is selling obviously globally outside just the UK, it's good to know what's going on the ground. Next question for you. This is another question I love to ask everybody on here. You've done the Dog and Pony Show a little bit, right? Like you did a presentation at Ian Castle's MicroCap Club Leadership Summit last year in October. So you've gone out there, you've started to talk to a global investor audience. Even after doing some of these presentations, doing some one-on-ones with investors, what are folks still getting confused about when thinking about Corero? And maybe some frequently asked questions you've been getting, and cover them right now.
Yeah, sure. I mean, generally speaking, I think that AIM's quite an interesting one in that respect, because a lot of people that invest in AIM really do understand the tech, because you have to. It's not really for the sort of always for the speculative investors, but what do they get confused about us is, firstly, how many products do we have, and do we offer a full suite of cybersecurity? And the answer is no. Look, DDoS is extremely very different from whether it's offering firewall protection or protection against phishing attacks and all that stuff. It's totally different. Yeah, look, we're in cybersecurity, but we don't. They are complementary products if you want to buy a full cybersecurity suite package, but it's not like we could suddenly switch across and develop this product or that product. It's not, they're not comparable. And I think that to make that clear and to say to people, look, we are part of a cybersecurity solution, but we're not we're not the only thing. You can't just get DDoS protection. That would be the second one. Is that you typically, as like in a small company, you're not going to go out and buy DDoS protection yourself. Like, that's quite an expensive solution for a problem that you probably could, you really want to rely on your internet service providers, your data hosts and stuff like that. And it's getting that understanding that we kind of sit in the middle. We're going to these middle people that then provide protection across their customer network. We're not going down to your individual kind of small enterprise and selling in, because it's not really efficient for anyone. So trying to get them to understand that model and why we're going for these connectivity providers, the hosting providers, the SaaS providers, that type of stuff, and getting them to understand why that's our market, not, why don't you sell DDoS to X, Y, and Z Inc. over there? It's like, well, it's probably an expensive solution for that. So that's really where we're at, and trying to, and also trying to explain how the tech works, and the fact that we do actually have, hardware with our name on it. Sometimes it's just software. It totally depends. We're pretty flexible like that.
Very good. So another kind of devil's advocate type question for you. It's my last one, I promise. In your opinion, what would any investor that were to ask you this, what would you say are some of the company's downside risks? Like, where could things all go to hell? Obviously there's execution, so I'm not even going to let you answer that. But what else is there that folks should better understand?
I mean, look, we're only as good as the product, right? As you say, if the product fails, the reputation's gone. So that is obviously something where, we take great pride in our products, and we have to make sure that it's absolutely top of the range. So that is for us absolutely key. If the product fails, then we are not in a good position. So that's really key. I mean, I think really it's not so much that if something happens to us, it's just really that to grow, we have to displace sometimes some very big competitors, and that can be quite difficult. That's a real challenge for us as a small company with a lot of big people that we're playing up against. It's one of those, it's a double-edged sword in the industry. So stickiness is absolutely a big thing. We get 98% customer retention rate, but that's not to say that other people don't have the same, because you don't normally change out your cybersecurity provider unless something's gone really badly wrong, right? Because it's quite difficult, and you don't want to lag time between providers, you don't want to be vulnerable, etc. So whilst that's great when you're in, it's also difficult to get in. So which is again why we have to focus really carefully on who we're targeting, because there is no point in targeting a big corporation that has an incumbent. It's not happening. Why would they flick them out for us? It doesn't really make sense. So we've always got to be very wary of the fact that whilst it's great for customer retention purposes, it also can be quite difficult to get in there, because there are the incumbents that are hard to displace.
Also just kind of, spitballing here, if we had the whiteboard from a strategy perspective, you got no shot going into those bigger ones unless you kind of like build up those small wins, and then you can kind of be like, look, here's all the logos we got,
But you're absolutely right. But it's also, I mean, we don't really want the distraction, because we've got, it takes so long to win a contract in someone like that. The layers of bureaucracy, the decision making and things. And we, that is potentially years. I mean, that's years and years, and there's no harm in, as you say, building up those relationships and building up the reputation, which is great. But we can't really be focusing on that because that's not going to give us an ROI in the short to medium term, which is what we need. So great, build up those relationships and make sure that the product speaks for itself. But we can't be relying on that. That's not a strategy that will work for us.
Fair enough. All right, I have technically two more questions for you, but the last one is it's a layup. But for to close this out here, again, in your opinion, where do you and the Corero management team, where would you like to see this company be in 3 to 5 years? And what would you say are some of the inflection points that'll get you there?
Yeah, I think for us, we really want to focus on organic growth for us. I mean, there's absolutely the market out there for us to attack. We're making inroads now. I'd love to say we're, 50+ million revenue company. That would be great. We can always have targets like that, but I think the nice thing is the business model is scalable. It's the product is there. It's been developed. Yes, we have to keep it updated, but the fundamentals are there. So, you add 10, you add 100 customers. Yes, we need to add the customer service on top of that, but it's a scalable business. So we add to the top line. A lot of that's trickling straight through to the bottom line. And what we really want to do is just prove to the market, that we're right. We're undervalued. We've got a great growth story and we can deliver on it. So next 3 years is really head down, deliver, just make sure that, the market understands that, because we had such a strong growth, 2018, 2019, 2020, and then 2021, and then this 21 to 22 is, it really set us back a lot more than it should have done. Our market cap is below where it was when we had half the revenue and weren't profitable. It doesn't make logical sense, but it's because of the way the story built up. So the next 3 years for us has to be steady growth, just hit the targets year on year, and then the share price will follow, the market cap will follow, and good things will happen. You don't want to let the tail wag the dog. You want to just deliver, share price will follow from that, not the other way around.
Very good. All right, Phil, we're there, man. Where can our audience go and find more information on Corero?
So, I mean, the best thing is our website, of course. www.corero.com is the source of all truth. I'm absolutely happy to take any questions or any information that people want to do. It's just phil.richards@corero.com if anyone wants to drop me a line. But the website's got everything it wants on it. It's got product descriptions, investor presentations, the whole shebang, you name it.
Very good. And that, you said one more time, that was www.corero.com?
www.corero.com. Corero.
Very cool. All right. Well, Phil, thank you so much for joining me today. Really do appreciate it. Good luck. Stay safe. And I look forward to our next update.
Thanks, Robert. Appreciate your time.
This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not provided as financial, legal, or any other advice. The information is not investment advice or an offer to buy or sell any securities or make any investment. The views expressed by guest speakers are their own, and any reference to third-party products, services, or information does not constitute an endorsement thereof by SNN or its affiliates. SNN expressly disclaims all liability for any individual's use of the information presented in this podcast.